Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome to Yield&Grace. As always, my videos are not financial advice and always do your own research before investing. Today, I want to talk about margin, what it is, how it works, and how I would personally handle it as a beginner just starting out. Margin can be a very helpful tool, but it can also be very risky if you do not understand it. So I'm going to explain everything in the simplest way possible, share how I use it safely with my high yield ETFs, and why it's not something that you should ever copy without doing your own research. This is just what works for me, and everyone's situation is different. I broke this down in a previous margin video, but I'm going to do it again today. What is margin? Margin is basically a loan from your broker. For example, Robinhood. Robinhood is my broker. So let's say you have $10,000 in your account. Your broker might let you borrow another $10,000, which then gives you $20,000 of buying power. But that's not free money. You're charged interest every month on whatever you borrow. It's kind of like a small loan that you pay monthly. So if your interest rate is 5%, borrowing $10,000 would cost you about $40 to $45 in interest per month. Something important to know is that every broker has different rules. They all charge different interest rates on margin, and they all have different maintenance requirements on stocks and ETFs. So what I experience on Robinhood might look completely different than what someone else experiences on Fidelity or E-Trade. Always check what your broker's rates and requirements are before ever using margin. So you may be thinking, how does the margin interest work? The interest is automatically taken from your account each month. You do not have to manually pay it. So if you're using margin, it's really important that your investments are earning more than what you're paying in interest. Otherwise, you are losing money. That's why I personally only use margin for my high yield ETFs that pay strong dividends every week. My dividend income easily covers my monthly interest charge and still leaves me with plenty left over. Next, let's talk about paying down margin. When people talk about paying down margin, that just means reducing the amount that you've borrowed. You can do that by adding cash to your account or by letting your dividends stack up, which naturally lowers your margin balance over time. For example, if you borrowed $10,000 and earned $1,000 in dividends, your margin balance would automatically drop to $9,000. Now let's talk about when you have DRIP turned on, like I do for all of my high yield ETFs. You may notice something confusing. Your buying power goes up after you've received a dividend, and it seems to stay up even after that cash is used to buy more shares. Here's why. The cash dividend hits your account first, increasing your available buying power. Then, when those new shares are automatically bought with DRIP, your broker's margin system doesn't actually lower your buying power for that purchase. Instead, it immediately counts those new shares as collateral. This is just how margin accounting works behind the scenes. The money isn't free, but since my dividends are large enough to cover my margin interest, this process helps me build a large cushion in my account, and it gives me flexibility for when the market pulls back. Another thing to understand is that ETFs and stocks have different margin maintenance requirements. That means your broker decides how much of your account you need to keep as your own money. For example, a stable stock might only require you to keep 25%, but a more volatile ETF might require 50% or more. If your account value drops below that level, your broker could issue what is called a margin call. which means you'd have to add more cash to your account, or they might sell some of your holdings to bring it back up. That's why I never use all the margin that I have. I always keep a big cushion. So speaking of a big cushion, let's talk about your margin buffer. I like to think of my margin buffer as my safety zone. If my account grows, my buffer grows too. But if the market drops, my buffer shrinks. That's why I do not max out my buying power. I use a small portion and let my dividends slowly build up over time. I also like to let my extra buying power stack up for a rainy day. That way, when the market pulls back, I can buy my favorite ETFs and stocks at cheaper prices without having to stress. So if I was starting over as a beginner, here's what I would do. Number 1, only use a small part of my margin, maybe 10 to 20%. Number 2, always keep a large safety buffer. Number 3, make sure my dividend income covers my monthly interest charge. Number 4, let my dividends and buying power build up over time. And number 5, most importantly, never treat margin like free money. Everyone has different goals, comfort levels, and risk tolerance. So always do your own research and figure out what works best for you. So to sum it all up, margin is a loan from your broker. You pay interest monthly like a small loan payment. Different brokers charge different rates and have different requirements. Paying down margin means lowering what you owe. ETFs and stocks have different maintenance requirements. Even with drip on, your buying power can stay elevated because of how margin accounting works. Always, always, always keep a buffer for when the market pulls back. This is just how I personally use margin, safely and conservatively. But it might not be right for you. Always, always, always take the time to learn and make sure that you are comfortable with any risk that you take. Margin can be a powerful tool if used wisely, or a dangerous one if it's not respected. Start small, stay cautious, and never borrow more than you're comfortable with. If this video helped you, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.